Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. You know, it's hard to believe that inflation is still a thing, but boy, it sure is. And that's exactly why Mint Mobile still gives you premium wireless for just $15 a month. Well, it's also because we have that offer printed on, like, 1 million t-shirts, but it's mostly the inflation thing. So give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months required. New subscribers only. Renew for 12 months to lock in savings. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See mintmobile.com.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
Hey y'all, I'm Taryn Finley, host of a new podcast from HuffPost called I Know That's Right. Each week, I'll be taking you on a ride where mainstream media and the depths of internet culture collide. Joined by a rotating cast of friends and guests, we'll be breaking down the weekly what's what and who's who of pop culture. You need a show that separates the mess from the stuff that makes you say, I know that's right? Don't worry, girl, I got you. Check out I Know That's Right, wherever you get your podcasts.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
Hi guys, welcome to this week's episode of Heavy Metal Tones with me, your podcast host, Tony Evans. This week's one is a little bit off the cuff, guys. I sort of had a bit of an idea, then it's sort of, I'm going to do that for something with Benji in maybe next week, I'd say. Benji, if you listen to this and you don't know about it, well, heads up, next week. Anyway, I thought I'd talk today, so I finally got my stereo unit fixed. As you know, last week I got all my bits and pieces to line up and to work. And I thought to myself, you know, I've talked about this before about you're all here on this channel, or this program, because you like music, B, you like heavy metal or heavy rock or punk or whatever your bag is, or you like to listen to programs about music. I mean, I sit in all of those categories. I thought today we'd have a bit of a sort of off the top of the head, sort of unscripted episode, and I'd talk you through my my stereo system, and sort of, we did it before, but sort of right back early in the show. But the sort of record buying, you know, as a collector or as someone who loves music, you know, you want to own the ephemera of music. What's best for you and your pocket? Let's be honest, your back pocket's important, and especially this day and age with petrol prices and the cost of living. I thought I would sort of talk about that. So let's firstly chat about my stereo. Now, I have a 5-piece stereo. Okay, so I've got a Yamaha radio receiver. I've got a Yamaha DVD player, but it's actually really cool. I got it from a friend of mine who moved back to Melbourne. That's in Melbourne, Australia, guys, for those living overseas. And he gave it to me. It's actually a Laserdisc player, but it plays every format of disc. I mean, every format. So, I mean, there are many versions of DVD and Super DVD and VHD and all that. So it does all that. I don't use it. I do have some Laserdiscs. I don't use it for a Laserdisc player because it's not attached to my TV. I use it purely for this CD option. I have hundreds of CDs. I don't tend to go to them. Above that, I have my now very much beloved Marantz SD1000 tape deck. It is a beautiful brushed, burnished copper sort of colour with piano key shuttle keys, 2 VU meters, little classic, a non-digital tape counter, Above that, then I have my Marantz amplifier. Now that's really important. So I'm going to get back to that in a minute to you guys. Amplifier, and over that I have my Optimus record deck, which my wife bought for me about 20 years ago now. And I have considered upgrading my record deck because we'll get to that section in a minute about record decks, but it's important that you have a good one. You can play your records on anything you really like. It's your money. If you've bought that record and you want to play it on a record deck that's a flea market one you get from, here in JB Hi-Fi, I'm sure in America it'd be Walmart or somewhere, or in the UK Dixon's, if Dixon still exists, I don't know, like an Audi version. If you want to do that, that's fine. But it's if you spend like me upwards to $150, $200 a fortnight, on records, do you really want to be putting it on a crappy record player? Probably not. Sorry, having some tea. I've actually got some Dr. Pepper today as well. But that's for another time. So, do you, as music lovers out there, do you need to have expensive hi-fi racks? Are you okay if you want to just stream your music? Yes, you are. Of course you are. It's up to you how you take it. This is the modern world. I mean, I am always will be a lover of the retro aspect of music. When I viscerally hate the term retro. Okay, it's not retro. It never went away. It is a lifestyle choice. It's not retro. It really just it conjures up, I don't know, overpriced market stores and people selling shit for big dollars, and I just really find that offensive. When there were pennies, when they were available originally, yes, I know they're manufactured anymore, but when you're selling a bloody Arnott's biscuit tin in a market for $25 because it's an Arnott's biscuit tin which was made to be disposable, reused, yes, possibly, but it's just ephemera. It's ridiculous. Absolutely, because you go, oh, it's retro. Well, yes, but Arnott's would have made 1 million of those tins. It's not valuable at all. Maybe, well, I suppose value is retrospective, isn't it? Value is what is valuable. What I don't find is valuable is different, but still, it's not worth the kind of money that they're asking for, and that's why I find retro really, really irritating. So, yes, back to stereos. I love and have always loved separates, so stereo separates, because think about this logically, guys out there in my listening world. If you buy a piece of equipment that's designed only to do that one thing, will it do it well? 90% of the time, yes. If it's manufactured well, of course it is, because that's all it has to do. That's its main job in life. When we sort of went through this phase, I had one. I had an Amstrad tower. Now, it was really interesting because my brother had it originally, and then he always had separates, and then he got this tower in the early 80s, and he gave it to me once he moved out. And it went wrong, so I got my older brother's an electrician to have a look at it, and we opened the back up, and honestly, guys, it was just all plastic and air. There was very little mechanics going on in there. It was all transistor, and that's it's an amazing thing. The transistor, it changed the world to be able to to bring 240 volts or 110 volts or whatever down to micro amounts of electricity to power small items. It's a very, very, very interesting. I mean, in fact, the inventors got the Nobel Peace Prize for that invention. But so it was just air and box, and the tape mechanism was horrendous. I mean, that was one thing that was the problem. It was the tape mechanism. It kept chewing tapes, and we couldn't work out why. And what it turned out to be was that one of the take-up spools was just needed oiling, really, but it was not. It was really, really shit. I mean, the record deck was a flimsy piece of plastic on a spring-loaded deck, and it was direct drive, which was a good thing. I like direct drive decks, but it was a cheap direct drive deck. It was a cheap plastic arm. It wasn't graphite. It was just really quite cheap and all over. I mean, I can't keep saying the word cheap, but it was. You know, we go to Amstrad, we go to Dick's. I think brother bought it from Curry's, which any listeners in the UK, it used to be like a cheap electrical warehouse, and he put it £199 maybe, probably, and that had cassette, radio, and record deck. No CD players before CDs. It had apparently, you know, like Dolby digital metal tape. You could play chrome tapes in it and so on and everything. But really, no, it was basics, very simple. So I'd go back to my my individual components, because the sort of big. I mean, we had one when we came to Australia. My wife had one. She'd bought here and left here when she'd moved to the UK. That was a brilliant system. That was a Sony. That was separates, but like a micro tower. It had big sound on it. Again, that was CD and no record, just CD and tape. I think she had a record deck, but it got damaged. Then we bought one of those really tiny micro systems, because that was the way it was in the late 90s. And you know, I'm still using the speakers now on one of my parts of my stereo. Really good. That was fantastic. It was just tape. No CD. It was just tape and radio. We bought a CD player separately. Little top-loading thing. Also played DVDs. It was terrible, but it, you know, did the job. So for many years, I was in the wilderness. I only had my record player and my amp, and I had a really quite a bad old amplifier. And I decided a couple of years ago to splash out and honestly start to try and enjoy my music I collected for so many years. And I've told you this before in other podcasts, a great deal, a lot of medium. And so I want to be able to try and sort of find that space. And the kids had moved out of home, had a new room that I could put it in, where I record this. And lo and behold, I've got my units. I'd searched for a long time for a cassette deck, and I told you this a couple of weeks ago, maybe even last week, that you know, the modern tape decks, the Tanashi tape mechanisms are in every cheap mechanism, even some of the most expensive tape decks are retro. I'll play with Tanashi decks. They're cheap mechanisms. I don't know how to describe it. As I said to you, go look on Techmoan's YouTube channel and watch his tape decks. It will tell you a lot. The one I've got it's beautiful. It is truly achingly beautiful for me. I look at it and I get a lot of pleasure just looking at it. Turn it on, it has lit up little VU needles. It has, you know, chrome, metal, normal, Dolby. It's good. It's just a beautiful thing. I'll put a picture on in the description. You'll see it. Anyway, so we then move on to. So we got our separates. Now, what's important? The most important part of your stereo system that you're going to buy, guys, to be honest, is your amplifier. Your record player you can get around with, even a relatively cheap one will get you by. Tape decks, not everyone is as fastidious with their tape decks as I am. So you know, if you get a tape deck, you get a tape deck. Get one that's sort of the late 90s, early 2000s, and you'll still get a relatively decent one. CD players, look now, I mean, because we still manufacture CD, and CD is still the way to play music in cars and most of the time now at home, if you're not streaming, they're quite easy to get hold of, although I'd still say early CD players are probably better, because they're built for one purpose, and usually the laser mechanisms are a little bit more rigid and a little bit more well made. Tuners, if you want radio, radio, let's be honest, as a medium is probably dead. It's something that we turn on to listen to, but I like to have it there because knocked the mic with my teacup. I like to have it there because I like to listen to the cricket, or the football. Sometimes it's on the radio. soccer for you Americans. Okay, I like to, so that's there. It's just that it's good to have that there. It's not digital, sadly, so a lot of the channels I probably won't be able to get very soon because they turn a lot of the digital channels off. So your amplifier. Why is the amplifier important? Because it's the engine of the car. Without a good engine, car's not moving. So the amplifier is extremely important. Now, there were lots of different amplifiers on the market. Be very careful when you're buying one, guys. If you're thinking to listen to this podcast, because I'm going to do the same thing. I'm already thinking about what amplifier to get. Where do I go? What do I want from it? Look, that's a whole another half an hour conversation, but we'll go over sort of the bullet points for you after this break. So when we get back to the other side, we'll talk about amplifiers, talk about record decks, and we're talking about speakers and so on. I hope you've enjoyed this so far. I quite like talking about my stereos, actually, to be honest. It's one of my small pleasures in life. Anyway, I will see you after the break. I'm going to get another cup of tea, and after these messages, we'll have a chat about amplifiers. Okay, see you on the other side, guys. Bye now.
Being a winner on Valentine's is easy. It's flowers. Don't forget the flowers. Order early at 1-800-Flowers.com and you'll be entered for a chance to win $10,000 cash, a bouquet that's guaranteed to wow, and the chance at winning $10,000 cash. Just go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ACAST. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/ACAST. No purchase necessary. Ends at 11:59 ET on 2/4/24. Open to legal residents of the 50 U.S. and D.C. 18 years of age or older. Sponsor is 1-800-Flowers, Inc. For free entry method official rules, visit www.1800flowers.com/sweeps.
Welcome back, guys. Hope you're still with me. This is quite a nerdy podcast this week, music nerdy people, but I hope you're still with me because I enjoy this sort of stuff. So, your amplifier. So I have a Marantz because I've always wanted and loved Marantz product. I'm going to eventually probably get a Marantz record deck as well, I think. I mean, my Optimus one is doing me fine, but I might just invest into a new one quite soon. So, amplifier. Engine of the car. So, like anything, if you're not technically minded, you want it to be straightforward and simple. I think you want enough in it to give you a little bit of challenge, at the same time a little bit of nerdiness, a little bit of tweakiness, but you also need it to be easy to use. So the reason I got my particular one is it's got I needed it for all my components. So you need to future-proof it. So I needed it for my Phono, I needed it for my tape deck, I needed it for my CD player, I needed it for my amplifier. Now that's all, my radio. So that's really all of my pieces. Am I going to get anything else? Probably not. But I have other channels on there, auxiliary channels, which I can put it on. You want it to be solid as you can, and also needs to look nice. I mean, I like mine. Looks pretty. It's pretty. If I want to be really obvious and be true brutal, my record deck, my tape deck stands out because everything is black except that. You don't get much choice these days. It's either black or black. I mean, in the old days, you got brush metals, you got chrome, you got all sorts of stuff. But now, mainly, it's just black. A little boring, I know, but it's the way it is. Now, you can also sit on my Marantz, you can put on 8 speakers. So if you wanted to have surround sound in there, it's not a surround sound as such, it doesn't have a surround sound button, but it does facility, but it does allow you to put 8 speakers so you can have sort of lots of sound around the room. Some of the more modern releases of DVD, CDs and things have surround sound mixes. I've got them, I haven't heard them play yet. I've got a lot of Marillion ones that are being and King Crimson, a couple of Genesis. I think Black Sabbath was almost the same. It's been mixed with surround sound, and apparently it's amazing. But I don't have that on mine. I don't really need it because it means I have to have lots of wires, lots of speakers. I'm not interested. If that's you and you want to put the seat in the middle of the room and you want to hear the guitars behind you and the singer in front of you like being on the stage, apparently it's an amazing experience. If that's for you, then get yourself a amplifier that has surround sound, 5.1 Dolby Mix surround sound, I think it is on there. There's other names for it, but that's basically it. You want it easy function, so you want it like I've got 2 dials. One dial changes it into the different phono functions, and the other one is volume. The 3 other small treble and bass, and that's left and right panning. I mean, really, really, really easy. There are a few little noise buttons and things like that which you can play with, but I generally leave those things alone. You want them, don't stack them if you can on top of each other, because you do need the heat to dissipate if you're going to use them a lot. That's why I've got mine in a cupboard with different shelves. The old ones that used to stack, that were designed to stack because they would put their heat sinks at the back, and then they would vent the heat out the back, whereas a lot of the ones I have, they vent through the top. Okay. Now, once you move on to there, you've got to think about your record player. So, what's the medium you use the most? One second, I'm going to put my cup down. What's the medium you use the most? Now, for me, at the moment I'm playing all my tapes because I'm a kid in a candy shop. I've got 1,000 plus tapes and I've got to play them, and now I've got a tape to play them. I'm going to. Do I have the same pieces of music on vinyl and on CD? Yeah, probably do. But it's just the enjoyment of putting the tape deck on. Okay, one also thing about the Marantz that doesn't have, which slightly irks me, but I had to go and buy a Bluetooth extender on the weekend because I want to walk around the house. I want to put the tape on. I don't do it with vinyl because I'll get back to that in a minute, but with the cassettes and with the CDs, I'll use them on wireless headphones. So I had to buy a little dongle that plugs into the power into the headphone jack of the amplifier. Now you can buy amplifiers now that have Bluetooth on them. Of course, the more you put on an amplifier, as I said before, right back to the beginning, the less quality you get in other areas unless you're paying big money, like my brother's Bang & Olufsen stereo or so on. The reason I don't use the Bluetooth for the vinyl is because I really enjoy the analog. And it's the same with tape, really, but with the vinyl, it's the analog system. It's to put the record on and being with it is what I enjoy about vinyl. You are stuck in that room with that piece of music. Cassettes were always designed to be portable. That's what they were designed for. So, don't mind walking around the house with my wireless headphones on, listening to the music. Even if it is a little bit thinner than it probably would be playing through the speakers. Same with the CD, yeah. Although CDs, were portable as well, but they weren't originally designed to be portable. That's your amplifier. So I paid around about 900 Australian dollars for mine. I think it's quite pricey. Certainly not up there with some of the very, very expensive pieces. But if you think about in Australia, anywhere between 500 to 1,000. If you can get them on sale, like my one now that I bought is now on sale for $375. Now, you can't future see it, so I've enjoyed it while I've had it, so that doesn't matter my dollars. In America, I reckon $500-600 maybe, probably a little bit less. Again, I don't know much about the American economy, sorry guys. In Europe and in the UK, £200-300, £200 or €300. You just have a look around and see what you can get. Try and stick with a brand that you can trust. So Marantz, Denon. You can go all the Sonys and the Yamahas and stuff, but they're not driven by their musical past. So that's why Marantz is good, because they really just do that. And they, or Bang & Olufsen, they just do that. That's what they do well. Moving up to the record deck. Now, as I said to you before, now I've got some pieces of vinyl in my collection that are worth $1,000. Probably a bit more. Do I want to put that onto a record deck that is going to damage that piece of investment of mine, and so I can't play it in the future? No. It's not about, and I've said this before and I'll say it again in this program, I don't collect pieces of vinyl for their value in my back pocket. It's a nice add-on when they are valuable, but I don't go buying for value. Yes, I have bought some for investment, but that's an investment. I don't go, oh, it's worth $1,000, I'm buying it. Even if I didn't like the bloody song, music, I'm not doing it because I don't need it in my collection. And I'm not the sort of person to go and buy and sell stuff. I've told you before, I sold a lot of my records as a young man to pay bills on my guitars, and I will never do it again. I'd rather live in a house full of vinyl and be poor than have all the money in my bank account and be empty and cold in the soul. So, record decks. Now, that again could be a whole nother episode. But when you buy your record deck, now my record deck is an older record deck, has a straight arm. I actually like a curved arm, slightly curved arm. The Audio Technica record decks, John's got one. It's beautiful. Be careful again with your record decks. All right. Some of this stuff is not needed. They put stuff on now because they think that's what people want, or they had 30 years ago on the top end decks, but no one used that. But even used that 30. I mean, what on earth do I need a slider on my record deck to change the pitch dramatically? I don't. Yes, it's good to have a little light on the platter, and you can adjust it slightly to get those lines so they don't look like they're moving, which means you get the perfect speed, and your woe and flutter, like on your tape decks, are going to be less. Brilliant. Maybe that's fine, but there's other things you just don't need on there. You do need 45, you do need 33 and a third. Look at your cartridge. Is it a ceramic cartridge? Was it a diamond? I've got look, it goes both ways. You can get high-end ceramics, you can get high-end magnetic spring. I mean, there's all sorts of different cartridges you can get. I use an Audio Technica cartridge. I think it's a really good. I've only had to replace it once on the deck I've got now. If you want to be really nerdy, you get yourself you get them on Amazon, I think about $25. I actually have one. It's a little weighing scale that you put your arm on, the record arm on, and what that does is excuse me, my computer has decided to shut off, as it does. It weighs it checks the tracking force. Now the tracking force is the amount of pressure that the needle asserts into the groove. Now, don't say grooves. There's only one groove on a record, not many grooves. And it pushes on the wall of the groove and down into the groove. Now, if you're pushing too much pressure down or too much pressure left or right, you're going to damage your record and your needles. So a lot of decks come with little counterweights at the back where you can adjust that weight. Now, I can't tell you what the correct weight is, but each record deck with its instructions will tell you what that needle's correct tracking force is. So if you want to, conserve your records, as we know, we all trying to, that's the way to do it, is to get one of those for pennies, and you can check it out. That's why cheap flea market record decks are just going to end up destroying your records. Now, if you don't care about your product and you're paying pennies for your records and don't care, you just want to play them loud and any way you want, then be my guest. But if you're an audiophile like myself, and like a lot of us are out there, get yourself a little tracking, because even though you do it once, you might need to change it quite regularly, because the more you use it, sometimes it just changes its tracking force. If you get a new needle, it will tell you what the tracking force is, and check that as well. Okay. You also get better sound if you're not pushing down into the groove. Record decks as well. So, direct drive or belt driven. Most of the 90% or more than 90% of decks now are belt driven. Mine's belt driven. The trouble with belt driven decks is that you get a little bit of you can get a bit of inaccuracy of speed, because the belts can loosen, and so when it's playing, you're not getting the accurate 33 and a third RPM or the 45 RPM. So you might get very slight speed variations and tracking force issues. So, just keep an eye on that. That's another good reason to keep an eye on your tracking force. Direct drive is wonderful because it's just the motor direct under the platter, which is where the record sits on. That itself gets trouble with direct drive is vibration, but most modern ones dampen that. And if you leave your record on the record deck, the old days they used to warp them because you'd leave them on the record deck with the power on and the motor's directly under the middle of the record and it's getting hot and you could warp the record. Very rare these days with the 180 gram reissues. Everything's now made with, I've got a 210 gram edition somewhere, but you could kill someone with it, it's that heavy. They're more likely not going to warp. But the mid 80s to early 90s Japanese pressings, mainly the Japanese pressings, they were very thin and flimsy and they would warp quite easily. So, look at that. That might be an option for you. The platter is important. So what it sits on. The heavier the platter, the less vibration, better sound quality. Okay? That's really important. The cabinet itself that the record player is in. You don't want a lot of superfluous cabinet. I personally would love a retro, a nice Marantz, a 1978 Marantz wooden topped record deck. Yep, would love it. I used to have a Bang & Olufsen direct drive. The record arm was in the lid, and it would track. Linear tracking it was called. So linear tracking, and you could choose a laser. It had a laser. You could choose the tracks, and it would drop it dead on the track. And it was amazing, but it would what it was doing to the vinyl, I'd hate to think, because you couldn't adjust anything, and it was all forced in a linear line. It didn't have any sort of lateral movement in the arm. I also had one of those ones where the record player played upright. That was really groovy. It was on the wall. My brother had it mounted on the wall. They brought a similar thing out for CDs years later. It was just strange, but I loved it. Yeah, so they're the things to look for. Superfluous cabinets. And, if it's offering millions of options for small amounts of money, walk away. Because all they're doing is giving you things that you don't need and they haven't really put much effort into it. Keep it simple. If you wanted some, you can get them now that go directly into your computer, so you can digitize your vinyl. But why would you do that if you've got a tape deck underneath? Just record it onto tape, or if there's a CD player, record onto CD. Yeah, you could sort of put it onto your hard drives, I suppose, as a way of archiving it, particularly really rare stuff. I've got a lot of bootlegs that are not even on any medium, not any streaming medium at all. So maybe I should probably one day put those onto tape and CD. And on my hard drive, because my record player does go to, it's one of the early ones that can actually go to your hard drive, to a hard drive. Be careful as well. Also, if you have a tape deck, a record deck, but don't want an amplifier, you can buy them that have preamps in them. If they've got a preamp in them, most of the time you can attach them to speakers and play them because it's preamped. Some amplifier, like I had to turn my preamp off because it didn't like my amplifier. I got weird sort of feedbacky sound from the preamp. Probably best to get one without a preamp and just go with it. Although, as I said, a preamp's not a bad idea if you don't have a powered amplifier to put your record deck through. We'll finish up soon in a minute, but the last thing I'd like to say on that is a nice steady cabinet for it all to sit on. Speakers. Now, speakers, it's up to you. You can have dirty, great big window blowout speakers. You can have, that's the thing, that's all driven by your amplifier. My amplifier has 100 watts per channel. I don't need 100 watts per channel. My speakers are 40 watts, and on 2 or 3, it's perfectly loud enough. You have floor-mounted speakers. If you've got kids, don't do it. You can have wall-mounted speakers. You can have wireless speakers now that go, directly to you. If you've got a Bluetooth on your amplifier, they go to Bluetooth speakers. Is the sound as good? No. Good quality cable is always best. Please don't skimp on your cables. Really, it's just not worth. It's just not worth it, because like anything, it's like, again, I'll take it back to cars. I don't drive, right? But I know what cars do. Your transmission, if your transmission is crap, your car's crap, right? The power's not going to the wheels. So same with the cables. So you need good quality cables. Don't skimp on that. Don't be fooled into buying, $200 gold-plated cables. At the end of the day, your speakers you're attaching it to and the amplifier you're attaching to are probably not good enough to accept that quality. So go with the level that you know it's going to work. So $20, $30 for good cables. I'm not talking about the whole lot, not just for one set. That makes a difference. It really, really, really does. Keeping your records clean, keeping your tape heads clean is important. Storing your records, very important. Don't lie them flat, stack them, end to end in a shelf unit if you've got them. Please, a little tip that people just don't think about with records, because records aren't in people's consciousness as much as they used to be, and they're quite a precious quite a precious thing now because they're expensive. When you put the record back into the sleeve, the opening of the sleeve, the inner bag, should go into the record first. This then stops dust coming into your record from the side. Don't have it so you can open up your record sleeve, pull out the record straightly without even taking it out of the bag. Why would you have a dust bag if that's the case? Turn the record so you're sort of like perpendicular to the edge, so that the opening goes either up or at the back of the record sleeve, if you understand what I'm saying. If you're going to put them in PVC cases, covers, be wary that I have old PVC covers on records I've had since I was 10 or 12, and I are now stuck completely to the cover because they were really badly manufactured. They were poor plastics, the chemicals leached, they stuck to them over time. The new ones now are not built that way, they're audiophile quality, but get audiophile quality clear covers. I buy 25 for $25, so basically $1 each, and buy audiophile quality paper inner bags. You don't need them for the new records that are coming out now, but if you buy second-hand records, and I do a lot of that, they don't often come with a decent inner bag. Don't try, also on the same note, don't try and buy second-hand records to be perfect. Buy them for what they are. So, I'll often buy a copy, say like Paranoid's a classic example. I've got like 6 copies of Paranoid, Black Sabbath's Paranoid, because I want the different versions of it. Now, 3 or 4 of those are probably really not playable. They're playable, but they're in quite bad condition. I didn't buy them for the playability of it. I bought them to have the quality, that particular print of it. Same with Nevermind the Bollocks by the Sex Pistols. I've got about 7 of those, all different issues. Probably 2 or 3 of them are pretty crap, to be fair. But I just want the different covers, I want the different labels, I want the different track listings, artwork, and so on. Anyway, that's my stereo episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. I know it's a bit dry, and some of you might go, oh god, he's talking about record decks, oh my god. Honestly, it's something, we all listen to music. I think if we take a moment to understand and appreciate how we listen to it, where we listen to it, we will get more out of it, I think. Anyway, that's me for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to sign off now, drink some more tea, put on some, I think I'm going to play some, I might play some Pistols, and we'll catch you next week. Keep safe, look after yourselves. Please do give me a thumbs up, go into whatever medium you listen to me on, and like me and give me a thumbs up, 5 stars or whatever rating, or review me. It just helps me get more listeners. I'm trying to get more listeners. Anyway, we will, that's the way it is. So keep safe, guys, and enjoy your stereos. I know I will. Bye, guys.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
Hey y'all, I'm Taryn Finley, host of a new podcast from HuffPost called I Know That's Right. Each week, I'll be taking you on a ride where mainstream media and the depths of internet culture collide. Joined by a rotating cast of friends and guests, we'll be breaking down the weekly what's what and who's who of pop culture. You need a show that separates the mess from the stuff that makes you say, I know that's right? Don't worry, girl, I got you. Check out I Know That's Right wherever you get your podcasts.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.